6 p.m. now, Cairo local time. It's a very good evening to our viewers and welcome to Channel 2's English News Bulletin. I'm Angie Meher joining you for the evening, and we begin straight away with a look at the headlines. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli inaugurates projects and company expansions in Ain al-Sukhna Comprehensive Zone. Trump arrives at the Saudi capital on the first leg of his 4-day Middle East trip. Israeli strikes on Gaza hospital, kills and wounds several people. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now the details in full. The Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, delivered a speech at the annual scientific conference with the Center for Information and Decision Support in the Cabinet, which was held in cooperation with the Faculty of Economic and Political Science at Cairo University. During his speech, Madbouli asserted that the formulation of economic reform programs according to a specific framework helps in enhancing the undergoing reformation. The Prime Minister also said the Egyptian government has adopted programs and policies that support the education and health sectors, as well as improves the living standards through a full access in the Egyptian government's work program that includes 16 main programs. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said that the state is giving great weight to the Suez Canal economic zone being the main attraction of foreign investment and the gate to achieving sustainable economic development. Madbouli was speaking during an inspection visit of the economic zone in the Suez Canal. Madbouli's inspection included a tour of the Sukhna Comprehensive Zone, inauguration of a Chinese factory for producing iron tubes with $150 million in investments. The tour also included inaugurating expansions of a Turkish company with $60 million in investments. A number of deals and memorandums of understanding were also signed. Madbouli said the state is keen on nationalizing industries and transporting technologies to priority sectors, especially sectors that represent a decrease in import bills. The Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati asserted that Egypt attaches great importance to the localization of clean fuel industry in a bid to strengthen its position as a regional center for clean energy. His remarks came during his meeting with a delegation from the Danish company working in the field of shipping and maritime transportation. During the meeting, they discussed ways to enhance joint cooperation between Egypt and the company. The meeting also reviewed an upgrade of the green energy field in Egypt, green transformation and incentives provided by the Egyptian government to foreign investors in this regard. Meeting also focused on modern infrastructure in Egypt in the fields of ports in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, as well as integrated industrial structures provided by the Suez Canal economic zone that qualifies it to receive investments from different companies worldwide. The Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati stressed during a phone call with the Turkish Foreign Minister, account on rejection to the deportation of Gazans. They also stressed the need to reach a permanent political settlement to the Palestinian cause through the two-state solution and the establishment of a Palestinian state within the boundaries of the June 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital. Their call came within the framework of periodical communication to boost Egyptian-Turkish ties and exchange viewpoints over developments in the Middle East. They also discussed the latest developments in Gaza in light of the humanitarian crisis in the Strip. Abdelati spoke about efforts by Egypt in cooperation with Qatar and the United States to return to the ceasefire deal in Gaza and guarantee the entry of aid to the Strip without obstacles. They also discussed preparations for holding the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee, which includes Egypt and Turkey, aimed at garnering support for the Arab Islamic plan for the early recovery and reconstruction of Gaza. They also both exchanged views over developments in Libya, as Abdelati stressed Cairo's support for national Libyan institutions and for preserving the unity and stability of Libya. Also, Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdelati held phone talks with his Cypriot counterpart, Konstantinos Kombos, on Tuesday. The talks discussed continuing coordination and intensifying efforts to calm down escalations and limit tensions in the region in order to boost security and stability. Bilateral ties also topped the agenda of the talks as they exchanged views over a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern. Abdelati also briefed his Cypriot counterpart on efforts by Cairo to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and allow the entry of humanitarian aid into the Strip. The Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed al-Sudani discussed on Tuesday with the Arab League chief Ahmed Abul-Gheit preparations for the Arab Summit due in Baghdad on Saturday. Prime Minister's remarks came during his meeting in the Iraqi capital with the Arab League chief, where they affirmed their keenness on the summit's success in a way that will mirror Iraq's Arab and regional status. The Iraqi Prime Minister also affirmed the importance of supporting the Arab League's role in solving any economic, security and developmental crises facing the Arab countries. Moving to the Economic and Social Council at the senior officials level, headed by the Iraqi Prime Minister, that approved during their session recommendations to be submitted to the preparatory ministerial meeting for the 5th Arab Development Summit. During the session, they also discussed the schedule in light of the agenda of high-ranking officials, economic, social and development files. Meeting also tackled means of boosting joint Arab action in different domains. American President Donald Trump arrived in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, the first leg of his three-nation visit to the Middle East this week, meant to tackle multiple crises and conflicts across the region. He was welcomed by the Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman after Air Force One landed in Riyadh. Trump and the Crown Prince held talks on U.S. efforts to dismantle Iran's nuclear program and the war in Gaza, hold down oil prices and more. Meanwhile, Trump and Saudi Crown Prince signed a strategic economic partnership agreement in Riyadh during Trump's regional visit. The partnership includes agreements for energy, mining, and defense. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia also signed an arms deal in history that the White House has called the largest in its history. Trump is also expected to be vetted by the Crown Prince with a formal dinner and a gathering of members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, made up of Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates later in the day. Hamas on Tuesday rejected Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's claim that military pressure had helped secure the release of U.S.-Israeli hostage Dan Alexander from Gaza a day earlier. Hamas said in a statement that the return of Dan Alexander was the result of serious communication with the U.S. administration and efforts of mediators, not a consequence of Israeli occupation aggression or the illusion of the occupation military pressure, adding that Netanyahu was misleading his people. An Israeli occupation strike on the Gaza Strip on Tuesday killed the Palestinian journalist Hassan Asli. The Gaza Civil Emergency Service member said the attack hit the 3rd floor of a Nasser hospital building in the southern city of Khan Yunis, where dozens of patients and injured were being treated. 2 patients, including the journalist, were killed and several others were wounded. According to the International Federation of Journalists, at least 160 journalists and media workers have been killed in Gaza since the start of the war. According to Gaza health officials, Israeli occupation war on Gaza has now killed over 52,000 Palestinians and destroyed much of the enclave. U.S. Special Envoy Adam Boehler said Tuesday that there was a better chance of securing the release of the remaining 58 hostages held in Gaza following the release of the Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander by Hamas a day earlier. Boehler spoke where he and Steve Witkoff, U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, were traveling to Doha to join talks on a possible ceasefire in Gaza. Repeated rounds of talks to agree to a ceasefire have failed as both Hamas and Israeli occupation forces refuse to yield on core demands. And the United Nations support mission in Libya has called for calm. It said that it is alarmed by the unfolding security situation in Tripoli, with intense fighting and heavy weaponry in densely populated civilian areas. It also urged all parties to immediately cease fighting, warning that attacks on civilians and civilian objects may amount to war crimes. This came as overnight clashes in Libya's capital killed at least 6 people. An emergency medical service said Tuesday, with local media reported an armed group leader was amongst the dead. U.S. President Donald Trump has offered to join prospective Ukraine-Russian talks in Turkey later this week as European countries push to get the Kremlin to accept their demand for a 30-day ceasefire in the war in Ukraine. Zelensky and the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan discussed the proposed direct talks, which Zelensky said may help end the war. Erdogan described the proposed meeting as a new window of opportunity, which was not to be squandered. Meanwhile, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said Tuesday that Russia was ready for serious talks on Ukraine, but that Moscow doubted that Kiev was ready for negotiation. Ryabkov said the realities on the ground in the context of the conflict in Ukraine should be recognized, including the incorporation of what Moscow calls new territories into Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, meanwhile, said they were committed to a serious search for ways of a long-term peaceful settlement. Pakistan's army said Tuesday that 11 armed forces and 40 civilians were killed in a military clash with neighbor India after a weekend ceasefire agreed between the nuclear-armed rivals and announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. Also, India said at least 5 military personnel and 16 civilians died. The Indian military has said its bases are operational despite minor damage. Welcome back now to some business news. Upon the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to expand the establishment of sustainable, environmentally friendly green public transportation, Minister of Industry and Transport Kamil El-Wazir inspected stations of the first phase of the buses of the BRT project on Tuesday. The phase extends from the Police Academy station to the intersection station of the Ring Road with the Alexandria Agricultural Road at a length of 35 kilometers. The project buses were produced locally in Egypt as the BRT contributes to encouraging and enhancing public transportation system by attracting new users instead of private cars. The Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashad, received the President of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, on Thursday. The meeting comes within the framework of the strategic relationship between Egypt and the African Development Bank, supporting efforts to achieve sustainable development and integration amongst African countries. During their meeting, Mashad highlighted the relationship between Egypt and the African Development Bank and Egypt's appreciation for the partnerships. This was clear in President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's reception of the President of the African Development Bank. She further recommended a partnership of the water access and cooperation in supporting arrangements to mobilize funding for the bank's resources and in the desalination project using renewable energy. Three oil and gas discoveries were made in Egypt's western desert and the Gulf of Suez. Capacity of the wells in the western desert expected to exceed 30 million cubic feet of gas per day. This according to the Egyptian Petroleum Ministry's announcement on Tuesday. Now to the exciting world of sports. The Egyptian League leaders Al-Ahli are currently playing at the Arab Contractor Stadium as they've scored a goal over Ceramica Cleopatra. Al-Ahli aims to cement their top spot win with and defending champions climbing to the top of the table with 49 points following the 4-2 win earlier over Masri, taking advantage of Pyramids FC. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up the evening's English news bulletin here on Channel 2. You're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Thank you for watching.